minute show where we push hard to elevate the discussion around future of finance. My name is Ola Sundell, and I'm the founder of Fintech Farm based here in Helsinki, and now busy reorganizing our local fintech hub to a pan-European digital banking academy. In this series, we're going to talk about innovation, transformation, ecosystem, business models, competition, failures, opportunities, visions, and of course, the bread and butter of finance risks. But we're also going to be talking about talent, soft skills, and defensive versus offensive strategies. And today we'll even touch upon data and perhaps a little bit of geopolitics. We aim to link this to our own research and to our modest quest to completely transform the way the industry learns and upskills. And what a privilege it is to start the series with none other than Anna-Maj, one of the most recognizable faces on LinkedIn and events around Europe within European fintech and finance. Welcome, Anna.
Thank you, Ola. Hello and welcome, everyone. And I'm so pleased to be here with you. So thank you for having me.
Right. So we have a 30-minute time slot here to really dig down and deep into the factors that is shaping the next decade of fintech and the strategy for financial institutions even. So many, of course, already know you, but really what is interesting for today is also a little bit reflecting and understanding the breadth and depth of your experience. I mean, since we're talking about Fintech 3.0 here today, your experience and of course my we both have an understanding of what Fintech 1.0 was, and then we've both gone through the Fintech 2.0 and now opening our eyes and changing our mindset to a new era. But yeah, a little bit of reflection and overview of your career would be super interesting as a background.
Yeah, thank you, Ola. So this year is very special to me, 2025, because it marks my 25th anniversary. So I started my professional career in 2000. So absolutely, it's a quarter of the century, and I think, and this has all happened basically in 21st century with all the evolving emerging technologies. So I think this is really a good foundation to recap in Fintech 2.0, 3.0, looking forward into it. And also I started before the term Fintech was coined. So absolutely, you can say it was Fintech 0.0 or even before Fintech, so like -1. But anyways, it was a combination of technologies and finance, especially payments, because I launched one of the very first payment gateways in EMEA, then one of the very first mobile payments platform and some digital banking apps so early in 2002. And I was always working in this kind of interconnection between the finance, payments, and technologies. And I tick some of the boxes. So I work for Big Four, I work for VCs, I work for the Treasury financial market. So this is a kind of as you said, a broader experience, a broader perspective that I can bring to the table. So it's a kind of a foundation indeed.
Exactly, and there's some rumor about a book also. I mean, what's could you shed a little bit of light and details on that?
Yeah, I think it very nicely coincides with the anniversary and also with kind of a recap, because this is about digital transformation leadership. So this is not only for the leaders like CEOs and all the decision-making people, but also people who really just aspire to be leaders in their functions, in their organizations. And this is about digital transformation, and kind of my career in a fintech is about transformation. I transformed from payments to more AI, and then sector agnostic technologies to deep tech as well, and also to newspaper. This is like kind of so first of all, digital transformation and leadership. So I will touch upon open innovation and strategic collaboration that is very much needed for this kind of transformation, how we can build partnerships, how we can build collaboration model based on practical use cases and real life examples.
This comes a little bit outside of the script here, but I mean, since the book touches upon innovation, and so I have a theory or a hypothesis, and I'd like to test it with you. Having spoken to people responsible for innovation in banks, it sort of beckoned upon me that it doesn't really seem that there is a kind of a common theory for innovation within a regulated industry like banking and finance, meaning it's a word that gets thrown, and there's a lot of product development, of course, going on, and business development and strategic development, but how we understand how like, let's say, laymen, so outside of finance, how innovation is understood. Is there any foundation for my claim here that one area that needs to develop a lot in the future, and hopefully in the next decade, is innovation, and how we sort of get a true handle on it, meaning that it's manageable, it's doable, essentially, because a lot of people come from outside of finance and start doing innovation within banks, and there's a lot of learning to do before you can actually get started.
Yeah, so absolutely, Ola. So you touch upon a kind of a very, very interesting topic and domain, and probably we could have a webinar only on innovation, especially open innovation.
And we will.
Perfect. That I lecture for some of the courses like Asian Institute of Digital Transformation. So, okay, you can have a book definition or academic definition of innovation, and of course there are some of them, but innovation is also a portfolio of different phenomena, because absolutely, this is not about the wow epiphany. This is the first moment when you discover something. But absolutely, and when we talk about innovation, we talk about the process. So it's like innovation management, and it's a continuous process which comes with the culture, also organizational culture, which involves people very much, how we can all be involved in the innovation, how we can discover new things, how we can create new ideas, and how they can be structured, and then how they can be implemented and, of course, monitored. So this is about the process, and this is about implementing innovation, and very much it is being connected to technologies. And of course, we have some innovative technologies. We discover, we build new technologies, but this is the beginning of the road. This is not the end, and this is the beginning of the journey, because it comes also with business models. So we can be innovative in different levels. First of all, so business models can be innovative as well. Customer experience, many different levels. And of course, we have like different kinds of innovation. We don't have that much time to lead through or to go through all of them. But of course, it can be disruptive innovation, something that is really emerging new, and it's like a new paradigm. It can be much more transformative, and it's much more sustainable than. And of course, it can be incremental innovation when you put together some of the technologies. So it's not disruptive; it's kind of incremental, but still, it can be like operational enhancements. So it's an interesting and exciting area that I can talk. And of course, this one is not devoted to innovation. Of course, we will connect to innovation, but this is a process, first of all. So it starts but it doesn't end from the like kind of invention. This is not the invention. Invention is something that we can really invent, like a technology, but we have to also deploy innovation within the organization. We have to adapt it, and basically we have to also share knowledge about it. This is very often the phenomenon that is a kind of a paradox, that once we innovate, we don't follow with knowledge, with knowledge sharing, with kind of acquisition of the innovation. So there is a gap, a so-called like innovation paradox or innovation gap. But this is something to touch upon probably later. Maybe this is something also to kind of include or incorporate to the agenda of Nordic FinTech Summit, and of course to have some session on that, how we can really enhance the open innovation, and of course how we can build successful collaboration models with fintechs, being banks and so on.
Yeah, and most definitely, and that definitely is the aim, and perhaps on my part, currently it's simply a question. We don't know how big a task and how let's say mature or immature innovation within banks is, essentially, because of course it's not something you can always directly ask, because what is the answer is pretty revealing. So you mostly get a kind of a cryptic or a kind of a disguised answer anyways. But let's move ahead, and just before, kind of briefly, also taking a little bit of stock from the FinTech 2.0 era. I think it's kind of essential to sort of highlight why the need for a FinTech Strategy Talk series, kind of where this series sort of emerged, and sort of really came from a profound realization at FinTech Farm that we had, as we now this year celebrate 10 years of Nordic FinTech, which I guess on some level is also a decade of FinTech 2.0 celebration, and the end of 2.0 and the beginning of 3.0 celebration. And so really we wanted to do this by giving out a brand new strategy framework for the coming decade up to 2035. And as we were sort of reflecting back 10 years, it made us realize that those early, like 2015 ideas and visions really aren't valid or exciting at all any longer. I mean, you know, I do a lot of research, and I go to YouTube sometimes, and it almost feels funny to listen to those early like 2015 to 2020 talks. Not of course that. I don't want to criticize or blame anybody for being having the courage of bringing forth bold visions. Quite the opposite. But some of it was quite naive, and others sort of outright irresponsible. And I think it's kind of as we are sort of kind of ending the 2.0 era here, it's important to, again, take stock and be honest, and brutally honest even. And a lot of people didn't understand the nature of the industry, where risk, supervision, and trust govern. And to me, at least personally, how I see it, by nature, you cannot disrupt that, because essentially the system wouldn't work if it could be disrupted. I mean, it wouldn't be a financial system if somebody could disrupt the system. And again, banks were often the target here, and banks really are the sort of the building blocks of the system, sort of that everything rests upon. At the same time, it's not saying customers aren't better off today than 10 years ago, but there is a kind of a sense of sort of underwhelming, being underwhelmed by how far we've come in 10 years, and sort of feels like a bit of a storm in a mug, but not in this mug, but in a mug. How do you feel about that? I mean, am I being too harsh and too critical, or am I biased here, or how do you feel, Anna?
Yeah, that's an interesting point, and I think yes. So we remember the kind of a start of fintech. So the crisis, the financial crisis in 2008. This is how it basically began. So there was a need and a demand in the financial markets to create a kind of a new paradigm, and of course it also came with help of technology. But I think we focused very much on technology. And of course, I think looking back, so just having this kind of a retro perspective of 17 years already, I think there are certain myths, as you mentioned, that we can deal with. First of all, there's everybody expected a revolution, and it's an evolution, not a revolution. So, in a way that you said it was disruptive, or it should be disruptive, but how you can disrupt the financial system, financial markets? Okay, with use or through technologies, but it's not enough. And I will come back to that. But first of all, it's an evolution. Second point is about what is fintech about? It's about finance and technology. This is the combination. But I think nowadays it's much more. It's not only about finance. It really pushed through different sectors and verticals and encompassed different sectors and verticals. Let's have an example of embedded finance. So like platform finance, that payments are being incorporated to other sectors like e-commerce and really enable these sectors. But basically, we also had a link to for example, to prop tech or to insurtech or to regtech, how fintech developed and basically how the finance were developed. And also, the third myth when all this began was, oh, and I still remember the conferences and the events and a lot of the discussion in the industry: is fintech an enemy, or is a friend? So basically, this will be like a kind of this new players, newcomers in the market that will attack banks, and they will attack incumbents and existing traditional players, and they will basically attack the customer base. They will really disrupt the financial world. And it wasn't the case. So gradually, as we talk about evolution, we realize that it's much more about a collaboration in the industry. That's about room for everybody, and also what happened on the regulatory agenda. So how it was tackled by PSD2, for example, in Europe. So open banking, so of course, enabling new players, newcomers like TPPs to take part and to join the financial ecosystem, especially banking ecosystem. So I think with all these myths that we basically kind of deal with, we have this kind of evolution, and we see there is much more. And going forward, I think, because we also mentioned this perspective of future-oriented scenarios and kind of a visionary outlook into the future, what can happen, it will be much broader. Also, and I think there are 2 points to look at, or 2 phenomena. One is, of course, the developments in AI, especially with all these massive developments that we had at the beginning of the year, even in January itself, like a lot of announcements from the US, from China, DeepSeek, and of course Stargate, just to mention few. But then also the shift that was already announced as well, from, let's say, open banking to open finance and smart data. So in a nutshell, it's much more than finance and technology. And because it's also, again, embedding and incorporating other verticals, especially in e-commerce. And maybe last point on that is also how much, or as much, we were focused on technologies. Now we should also focus on, of course, the application of technologies, but more on business models. And of course, how we want to shape business models if we talk about data sharing platforms. And of course, this is a new realm that is coming and it's changing in front of our eyes. But also how we really want to commercialize it and to monetize it. So these are the business models that are existing, but there will be also new business models for the platforms, for the data sharing ecosystems to emerge.
Yeah, and definitely, and I think you kind of raised AI there. I mean, there's plenty in this time, let's say last year and this year, why in a way it makes sense to really kind of draw a line in the sand, or I would like to even say like a line in a concrete, saying that, you know, this is really like going ahead. The next decade is going to be completely different than the previous one. Again, AI was there and has emerged like with an immense potential and power over us and businesses, both in the positive and the risk sense as well, of course. But as perhaps reflecting and moving a little bit sort of into this 3.0 and leaving the, let's say, the shortcomings of the 2.0 behind us, and really trying to make sense and of how this strategic landscape and the playbooks in the coming years will have to look like. Perhaps it's sort of symbolic. You also mentioned data there, and perhaps it's just symbolic, and that we also are kind of moving from PSD2 to PSD3, sort of a kind of an official label or a stamp or a certificate that we are in the 3.0 era now. But I guess it has to be kind of mentioned also, this geopolitical landscape currently taking shape, and so before moving it perhaps into this PSD2 and PSD3 world as well, perhaps a few words about the geopolitical landscape and how much, for instance, just in the space of, let's say, sanctions governance, you know, there's rumors that the U.S. Sanctions Office, OFAC, is pretty much paralyzed, and what is going to happen around sanctions and how that's going to mirror into everything that the US does, the EU does as well, because of course sanctions is a global system that then cannot be just purely managed by one region or a system. But how do you kind of make sense of the geopolitics and how it's going to perhaps be even one key driving force within finance and fintech going ahead?
Yeah, Ola, I think, so thank you for raising this perspective. And I think it's a perfect timing, and it's a momentum, because now we really see it in front of our eyes, and it's changing, it's emerging in front of our eyes. And of course, the geopolitical aspect was important, but now it's growing in importance very much. And of course, the recent talks between Russia and the US, and of course Trump agenda and administration, how it will shape the world. But I will like maybe step down from the macro geopolitics, how it influenced the industry development and industry evolution. Because let's take an example of AI. So I mentioned some of the announcements and developments, and of course what the US is doing and what China is doing, and of course like Stargate versus, of course it's not only Stargate, but it's also like individual big tech corporations that they mentioned some of the developments, for example Nvidia, and of course also there were some quotes, very kind of a popular and famous quotes by Elon Musk, having said that that's the end of the database which is available in the internet. Also like the chief AI evangelist and also like the scientist from Meta said that we will need some new AI models. So I think this is about the geopolitics, and of course with DeepSeek on top. So there are two, and they are very much driven by geopolitics. And there are two phenomena that I would like to highlight for the sake of time. So first of all, this is the race between US and China, to be honest, and Europe is lagging behind. Of course, we have some good and flagship examples. So with the humble reservation of Mistral AI in France, and of course there was a AI summit very recently taking place in Paris. So I think it was last week or a couple of days ago. Basically, and some announcements, also some announcements coming from EU and European Commission, how it will support the development of new AI models. And of course, there are just hundred millions, if not billions, because there are some billions, of course, coming into AI development. But when we compare to the US and China, that it's still the race between the two. And so Europe is slightly lagging behind also in terms of the new models. And of course, DeepSeek, this is the open source based AI model. So it's also something different to mention here. So what I'm trying to convey is exactly that we will have, there is already the need and the demand for the new AI paradigm. And it's not only Gen AI, generative AI that everybody is talking about, and OpenAI and ChatGPT and similar, or DeepSeek, but it's still the shift towards agentic AI, for example. So much more of robotics in physical, but also virtual assistants and agents that NVIDIA is developing. So that's much more into new AI models that will also empower and drive and fuel fintech and fintech related developments in data analytics and new fintech models, and of course in LLMs or financial LLMs and so on, into data driven models. So this is the first point. And the second one is about computational or computing power, because it's definitely needed. It's a fuel, it's an engine for developing new AI models, and the cost of it is a key component. So how we can drive this cost down, and this is the example of DeepSeek. And of course, they did it for a fraction of the money that was used for other startups, not even mentioning OpenAI. And of course, how much money was poured into the industry to develop AI. And of course, yes, we can discuss DeepSeek in more details. We don't have that much time because they collected, they bought, and basically they aggregated the NVIDIA's GPUs, so the chips. So of course, we can still discuss how much money was put by the hedge fund there. But absolutely, the cost of computing is a key, because then it really empowers and it really fuels, or even just the new AI and the new AI models that are needed. And of course, the more of computing powers we have with new chips, with quantum, then kind of more easily we can solve all the problems related to calculating, but also just manipulating the large language models and understanding the language, and of course creating new content, for example, for Gen AI, and of course coding. And not only so this is a kind of a portfolio of different phenomena, but absolutely there is a push and there is a need for new AI models, and there is a need to drive down the cost of computing power. And this is again the race between US and China when we talk about the geopolitics.
Right. Good. Thank you, Anna. And actually, as you say, I mean, we already have to start summing up and perhaps leaving AI a little bit outside of the summary here, and kind of pushing and pulling us back into the world of finance here. But I mean, on my part, I would say that, in summary, for fintechs, the next decade cycle, or cycle, whichever is actually shorter. I mean, the next cycle could be shorter than a decade. We don't know. I do assume that it's going to be around a decade again. It's really about finding a way to grow without the hype and buzz that was really kind of pushing everybody forward also in 2.0. And also redirecting significant resources on the boring and defensive stuff. On the other hand, I feel for banks, it's the opposite. It's finding a way to balance risks without actually de-risking, because then, in a way, banks have always been traditional in de-risking, and now that we are so much, defined by the risk landscape here, if you're in a sense de-risking even further and not at any point moving to become offensive in your strategy, I think that's really going to damage and has damaged some of the more sort of again, defensive banks that have really kind of survived quite nicely in the last decade by essentially standing still. I would argue. I mean, it's been a fairly smart strategy for banks to just stand still. At the same time, we kind of do see that uh, on a lot of markets and segments, let's say cross-border payments, for instance, and SME, I would argue banks have significantly already, their business models have started eroding. So very interesting to see how they're going to jump back there. Sort of final words, perhaps even Anna, and I do want you to have the final words. We're of course lucky to see you again at Nordic Fintech Summit on the 15th of May in Helsinki. It's worth noting that we're celebrating the Nordic Fintech 10-year anniversary, so big time, launching our brand new strategy arena, again designed to really drive home the sort of the mindset shift here and the need to approach the next decade with an entirely new playbook. It's a level playing field. Everybody. There's no real advantage you can gain through technology. I mean, AI is there. I mean, you can be ahead of the competition for a few months, but then it's already caught up. So, really, like strategic leadership and is sort of emerging again to be the real competitive force. So without sort of putting all your energy into differentiation and all the typical strategy spiel, I mean, it's not going to be possible. So again, super excited to see you in person again, Anna. What would you any final words you'd like to say around, let's say, open data, for instance?
Yeah, Ola. So first of all, congratulations on your 10th anniversary, and I'm happy to join for the Nordic Fintech Summit in Helsinki this May. Hopefully, we'll have more time to discuss some of the topics and strategic frameworks that we touch upon. Just to recap very briefly, so even if we talk about the new paradigm that will be emerging, this definitely will be about new business model. This will be about new AI models that we already mentioned, and this will be about data sharing ecosystems and platforms. Let's take an example of PSD3 on the horizon with FIDA that comes together. And of course, this is about the data sharing ecosystem, how we can leverage the data, not only banking data, but also like pension funds, investments, savings, credit cards. And of course, as we know the paradigm from the open banking, we know the open APIs that are published and available to TPPs, and they are free of charge because they are public. But for the new PSD3 framework, so if you exchange data, if it's a data sharing system between the data producers and data consumers, this model won't be free of charge. This is exactly the question of the business model, but it can be charged. And what will be the model? What will be the price? This is something to decide upon the data sharing schemes. And last but not least, something that we didn't have a chance to touch upon in this webinar, but hopefully we will soon, because it's instrumental. It's about people. It's about skilling, upskilling, reskilling, and it's about skills and capabilities that we'll need as individuals and organizations to face all these new challenges, not only in fintech, but of course we are very much focused on fintech.
Exactly. So Fintech Strategy Talks every second week on Fridays. So see you in 2 weeks. Lots of new and exciting people and program lined up, just like at Nordic Fintech Summit in May. Really looking forward to meeting you, Anna, and everybody in person there. On behalf of Digital Banking Academy, myself, Fintech Farm, Thank you so much for participating, and have a great weekend. Bye-bye.
Thank you. It was a pleasure. So bye to everyone. Thank you, Ola.
Thanks. Bye.